In March 2015, Creflo Dollar told his congregation he needed $65 million to buy a Gulfstream G650. He didn't pass a collection plate twice. He set up a crowdfunding page asking 200,000 of his followers to chip in $300 each. The public outcry shut the campaign down within weeks. The church board issued a statement saying they would acquire the jet anyway. The IRS never opened an inquiry, not into the campaign, not into the acquisition. Megachurches are the only business in America where the customer pays, the owner takes the jet, and the federal government calls it charity. There are about 1,800 megachurches in the United States, meaning churches with weekly attendance over 2,000. The biggest is Lakewood in Houston. More than 45,000 people come every week. Annual budget around $90 million. The pastor, Joel Osteen, lives in a $10.5 million mansion in River Oaks. His estimated net worth runs around $100 million. He claims to draw zero salary from the church. We don't know the exact mechanics because he doesn't have to tell us. That's the first thing to understand about megachurches. You're not really buying a religious mission. You're buying a tax classification, Section 170B1AI of the Internal Revenue Code. Other nonprofits file a Form 990 every year. Hospital nonprofits, university nonprofits, public charities. All of them disclose their financials, their executive pay, their largest contracts. Churches don't. Churches are the only 501(c)(3) entity in the United States that the IRS exempts from filing a 990. The books are sealed by federal statute. Even if you donate 10% of your income for 20 years, you have no legal right to know where it went. Look, that's the real product. A megachurch is a financial vehicle that happens to use religion as its consumer interface. Take a hospital. Memorial Hermann, Kaiser Permanente, the Cleveland Clinic, all non-profits. All file a 990 every year. You can pull up the CEO's salary on a public database. You can see how much they spend on lobbying. You can see their endowment, their litigation costs, the names of their largest donors. Now try the same with Lakewood Church. The IRS doesn't have a 990 for them. Neither does ProPublica. Neither does anyone. You can guess the budget, about $90 million a year. Because the church publishes a number for marketing reasons. You can guess Osteen's salary because he says publicly he doesn't draw one and lives off book royalties. But you can't verify any of it. Here's the thing. In November 2007, Senator Chuck Grassley opened a Senate Finance Committee investigation into 6 prosperity gospel ministries: Kenneth Copeland, Creflo Dollar, Benny Hinn, Joyce Meyer, Paula White, and Eddie Long. The investigation ran more than 3 years. 2 of the 6 made small governance changes. The other 4 didn't cooperate fully or made no changes. In January 2011, the committee closed with no penalties, no new disclosure rules, nothing. So what's actually being sold? The tithe. 10% of your income, voluntary, but socially enforced in a way that's hard to overstate. You give in cash on Sunday. Or you sign up for an autopay through the church app. Most large churches now offer the autopay. Do the math on Lakewood. More than 45,000 people every week. Even if you assume a modest average gift, the in-person service alone generates tens of millions a year. That doesn't count online giving, mail-in donations, special offerings, building campaigns, or merchandise. And here's the structural beauty of it. The congregation replenishes itself. The kids who grow up in the pews become the next decade's tithers. Lakewood doesn't need to do new customer acquisition the way Crumble Cookies does. The customer base is generationally captive. The lifetime value calculation isn't a customer's lifetime, it's their family's lifetime. Now we get to the part the pastors really like. IRS Code, Section 107. The parsonage allowance. If you're an ordained minister, you can exclude the cost of your housing from your taxable income. Not deduct it, exclude it, as if you never earned it. The original rule from the early 20th century was meant to help small-town pastors who lived in church-provided housing. Reasonable. The rule still exists. It got expanded in the 1950s to cover cash housing allowances. Pastors who buy their own homes can also use the exclusion on the mortgage, the utilities, the property tax, and the upkeep. Joel Osteen's River Oaks mansion is 17,000 square feet on nearly 2 acres. By Texas property tax records, that's well over $250,000 a year in property tax alone, plus utilities and upkeep. If a portion of his compensation is structured as a housing allowance, and there is no rule preventing this, that portion is federally tax-free. No income tax, no payroll tax. No reporting requirement to the public. That's not a loophole. That's the actual law. It applies only to ministers. Then there's the franchise play. Life.Church in Edmond, Oklahoma has 46 physical campuses, plus an online church, plus the YouVersion Bible app, which crossed 1 billion installs in late 2025. The model is simple. One sermon recorded centrally, beamed live to every campus. Each campus has a local worship band, a youth pastor, a few staff. The marquee preacher, Craig Groeschel, is at the central campus or pre-records. Every other location is a satellite. Compare that to a McDonald's franchise. McDonald's takes about 40% of franchisee gross revenue and rent. The multi-site church model takes 100% because the central church owns every campus, doesn't pay a franchise fee out to anyone, and all the volunteer staff at the campuses pay the church for the privilege of being there in the form of tithing. If McDonald's could clone its corporate brand 46 times and have the customers volunteer to staff it, every business school in the country would teach the case. Most of these guys aren't just running churches, they're running content empires. Joel Osteen's first book, Your Best Life Now, published in 2004, sold over 8 million copies on its own. He's published 14 more books since. 7 of them have hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Career sales likely run well over 20 million copies. At an industry-standard royalty rate, that's a lifetime book income in the tens of millions of dollars, separate from anything the church pays him. Plus speaking tours, plus the SiriusXM channel, plus the weekly broadcast that reaches, by their numbers, about 10 million people in over 100 countries. Now think about the flywheel. The book sells to a non-Lakewood reader in Phoenix. That reader watches the broadcast. The broadcast advertises a Night of Hope event at a stadium near them. They go. At the stadium, they're told where the nearest Lakewood affiliate or partner church is. Some percentage of them start attending a church. Some percentage of those people start tithing. The book makes money. The broadcast makes money. The stadium event makes money. And every step is also a feeder for the recurring tithe revenue downstream. Last one, real estate. In 2003, Lakewood Church needed a building. They got the Compaq Center, formerly the home of the Houston Rockets. The original deal was a 30-year lease, with Lakewood paying $11.8 million in rent up front. The renovation cost another $95 million, most of which the congregation paid for through a building campaign. Then in 2010, the Houston City Council voted to sell the building outright to Lakewood for $7.5 million, 5,000 seats short of the Toyota Center next door. Property tax exempt under Section 501(3), which exempts religious organizations from local property tax in every state. So multiply that across 1,800 megachurches in the United States. Each one sitting on a piece of commercial real estate, none of them paying property tax, all of them appreciating with the local market. Anyway, that's part of how the balance sheet keeps compounding. The customer pays the mortgage on the building gains value. The pastor never has to sell. So what are you actually buying when you buy a megachurch? You're not buying a religious mission. The gospel is the consumer interface. What you're buying is something else. A stack of structural advantages that no other American business has access to. You get a tax classification that hides your books from the public. You get a customer base that replenishes itself through their children. You get a tithe that functions as predictable recurring revenue, growing roughly with population and inflation. You get a parsonage allowance that lets you live in a $10 million house tax-free. You get a multi-site franchise model where the customers volunteer as labor. You get a media flywheel that uses each book sale and each broadcast viewer as a recruiting funnel for the recurring tithe. And you get a piece of commercial real estate that appreciates at the local market rate while you pay zero property tax. When you multiply that across 1,800 operating megachurches in the United States, you start to understand what you're actually looking at. The megachurch isn't a religious institution that happens to make money. It's the most structurally protected financial vehicle in the American economy, and it happens to use religion as its consumer product. Creflo Dollar got his Gulf Stream. The IRS never asked a question. The congregation paid for it, and by federal law, that was the system working exactly as designed.